Greetings Guardians, my name is Bife here. So in the last few videos we've been talking about Destiny's dragons, the Ahamkara. Previously we talked about their interactions with the Awoken, Hive and Cabal, as well as how we Guardians literally hunted them to near extinction. I also went over how the Great Hunt was probably something instigated in part by Riven of a Thousand Voices herself, and how it led to many great and terrible disasters for the Guardians who undertook the part of the hunting. Today I wanted to change tack. Instead of talking about dragons more generally, I wanted to talk more specifically about one dragon, Riven. Riven of a Thousand Voices. I think this still works because at a certain point she is the only dragon that's left, and we've talked about her story whilst the other dragons are alive, and chronologically it therefore makes sense to continue this story with hers being the only perspective we look at. This means that we are predominantly focusing on her, Mara Sov, the Awoken, and the various hive gods that she interacted with going forward. This is because, at this point in time, Riven of a Thousand Voices is interacting with a plethora of powerful entities, hive gods, the Awoken, Guardians. This is where the story becomes incredibly interesting, and as far as everything is concerned, she is probably the most important character in the entire Ahamkara storyline as a result. So, let's go ahead and tell her story as a part of this greater narrative about Destiny's dragons. But first, a word from our sponsors at Advanced GG. If you're a fan of the channel, you've probably heard of Advanced GG right now. They're the only gaming supplement that is clinically proven to improve your gaming performance. It's based on a natural, healthier green tea caffeine that helps to improve focus and gaming performance, including reaction times and memory. Recently, we came out with our own flavor, the Lord Daddy Lemonade, and over the past few months a ton of you guys have also been sending me tweets with your new ice shakers that we got in partnership with Advanced GG as well. If you want to get any of that, you can get it all in their Black Friday sale. And it gets even better because until the 26th of November, you can buy one get one free on certain select flavors of Advanced GG formula. Not to mention, there's the Cyber Monday sales, where you can get up to 50% off if you use my partner code. So don't hesitate, it's a great time to stock up. Check the link in the description and use code BIFE or code LawDaddy at checkout. Thanks again to Advanced GG for sponsoring this video. So, last time as we rounded out the story of the Great Hunt, it was pretty clear that the Guardians, for better or for worse, had been almost completely successful. They had wiped the Ahamkara from the face of Sol, and even with the large number of wishes that had clearly been granted by the dragons in the Great Hunt, the prospect of future wishes flowing from them was unlikely. Of course, their remains were still a factor. Remember that even Ahamkara bone and scale, taken from a dead creature, is capable of granting wishes, and so the Vanguard would need to control them closely, and they would need to be carefully policed. The possession and trade of them by Guardians was meant to be strictly prohibited, and only a select few Cryptarchs were allowed to access the specimens gathered by the Vanguard in their secure vaults. Of course, this hasn't stopped Guardians from acquiring specimens found throughout the world, but it is something that has brought about a little bit of ire from the Vanguard from time to time. The Vanguard really tried to police the idea of the Ahamkara too, and it gets to the point in the lore that even just mentioning dragons of some kind can be enough to spook the Vanguard if it's a notorious enough example. Case in point, Dinas Emeris. Dinas Emeris is a sparrow from D2 Vanilla, and its lore tab tells the story of how the Guardian who owns it, Ariadne Grease, was brought in for questioning by the full consensus at the time. This includes everyone but for the speaker, who at the time of this particular moment in Destiny had recently passed. But why was she called in? Because she had painted a dragon logo on the side of her sparrow, and she wasn't just any old Guardian, that sparrow was being prominently displayed in sparrow races. Now, thankfully, Ikora breaks up the entire interaction given how ridiculous it clearly is, much to the chagrin of Executor Hideo from the New Monarchy, and the line of inquiry is dropped, but this just goes to show how scared some members of the Lost City's ruling bodies really were of the Ahamkara. This entire interaction generally would be pretty scary if it weren't for the light-hearted tone that the meeting ends on, I mean, think about it. Essentially, it's an inquisition, because somebody painted something which might be Ahamkara adjacent onto their vehicle, their own personal vehicle. This is like if Amity Island, the town from Jaws, brought someone in for questioning by the police because they had a dolphin painted on the back of their truck. Sorry, Miami fans. Total madness. There are clearly some examples, ourselves included, where it's clear that the Guardians have borne Ahamkara remains though, and they have not even been stopped, and I think it's here that the consensus knows they can't easily draw that line. Lord Shaxx comes to mind as well, given that he still has a massive Ahamkara skull positioned above him in the tower. Shout out to the one commenter, by the way, who reconfirmed that it is indeed an Ahamkara skull in one of my last videos. This is something which I think is also worth noting. But guess what? Madness or not, the job of the Lost City's Guardians, which they set out to do so long ago in the Great Hunt, isn't actually complete. One dragon still remained after the fact, Riven of 1,000 Voices, and with the Great Hunt being incomplete, the Ahamkara's power persisted onwards, in Riven specifically. So let's talk a little bit more about her. We've already discussed in a previous video how Riven was the first Ahamkara to ever meet the Awoken, and that she was originally discovered by Uldren, who presented her to Mara Sov. There is a bunch of shared history between Mara and Riven of 1,000 Voices, and together they did accomplish some remarkable things. Mara was, however, well aware of the danger of Riven's power as an Ahamkara, and sought to exercise a degree of control over it. There were several ways in which she would do this, but the most obvious ways consisted of a wall or two. By the time that the Great Hunt had begun, Mara was constructing the first of her walls around Riven. This one would be physical in nature, designed to partition the heart of the Dreaming City from the rest of it on the outskirts. Remember that the Dreaming City is already a hidden bastion, so creating a wall within it implies the importance of that defense for whatever lies within. The nature of the wall's construction is noted in the Greaves of the Great Hunt. That lore tab reads as follows. So the Dreaming City would have a wall too. Leona Brill stared up at rows of blank circular plates with dread. This one was more valuable than everything behind the wall of the Lost City, and not nearly as defensible. The tower has asked for help in its Great Hunt. If the Vanguard knew that the help the Queen rendered came at the behest of the Ahamkara, armies of Guardians would storm the reef. So they will never know. The Guardians brought this on themselves. The bargains they made and the power and knowledge they gained was equivalent to the chaos wrought on this system by Whispers. The Queen was glad to help them clean the mess if it meant Riven would be the last living Ahamkara. Power is useful, unique power more so. Leona wasn't sure if she was as glad as the Queen. And thus, Riven was guarded away in the heart of the Queen's Walk. Mara would not share her most closely guarded secret with any but her closest advisors. Probably only Uldren, the most senior of the Techeuns, the Paladins, and the Queen's Wrath. Though I imagine those who assisted in its construction and those who were close to the matter, those who had seen Riven before, were under no illusions about what lay at the heart of their city. This physical wall might have kept prying eyes away from Riven and stopped her from granting wishes to others, but Riven's wishes could still cause a great degree of harm to Mara unless she wished with care. And so, another wall was devised to cage Riven's power. This one, however, presented its power in a far more metaphysical manner. This is, of course, the Wall of Wishes. I already went over this in a quick video I did the other day, but I'll cover it again here. The Wall of Wishes was created by the Techeuns to solve the problem of an Ahamkara being able to twist a wish and interpret it more loosely, thus leading to undesired and unforeseen outcomes. The way the Wall of Wishes works in this respect, wow, I can't believe I nailed that sentence, it's pretty clever. It works off a visual language that the Ahamkara must interpret for the wishes to be granted. This visual language leaves very little room for interpretation outside of the original wish's meaning, meaning that the outcome of the wish is much less easy to twist. The Wall of Wishes consists of 20 plates, each of which have 16 inputs, 17 if you include the blank slates, which you should. How many combinations does that lead to? It can't be that many. Well, as it turns out, it is indeed a lot. Nexi801 did the maths over on Reddit years ago. I'll link their thread somewhere below in the description. But the Wishing Wall has not a million, not a billion, not even a trillion combinations, but over 4 septillion combinations. The exact number is actually quite a mouthful. It's 4 septillion, 64 sextillion, 231 quintillion, 406 quadrillion, 647 trillion, 572 billion, 522 million, 401,601 potential combinations. And for context, that looks like this. Put simply, you cannot brute force the Wall of Wishes. Wishes can be made with this visual language in a manner that is highly specified, but Riven still seems to indicate that there is room to twist things. We know this thanks to the Helm of the Great Hunt, which makes commentary from Riven's perspective on the wall. Take a listen. The Queen would like to improve her means of bargaining with me. She has implied that I use the space between words to make bargains to my advantage. How dare she? She knows me so well. What the Queen wants, the Techeuan move worlds to obtain. And so the witches devise an impossible machine that speaks a visual language with very few spaces between its words. This machine speaks wishes, makes bargains. The Wall of Wishes, it is called. If the Techeuan's design proves correct, it will be difficult for me to interpret the wishes made at the wall to my advantage. But challenges entice me. I look upon the wall, upon the witch's visual language for bargains. For me, it is a menu of delights to feast upon. So the Wall of Wishes isn't perfect, but with it, Mara had the ability to keep Riven's wishes in check, at least to a certain degree, and as long as she was using the Wall of Wishes in the correct manner. Riven's imprisonment in the Queen's Walk was seemingly only conducted under certain circumstances, though. In the lore, it's known that she wandered freely around the core of the Dreaming City for certain moments in time, and she was present at certain key moments in Awoken history, such as Petra Venger's ascension to the Second Queen's Wrath. Riven would also help to create marvels with Mara in advance of the coming storm that would engulf the system in the war against the Taken King Oryx. The most notable of these would be the creation of her throne world, Eleusinia. The path that led Mara to create Eleusinia started with Eris Morn. She came to the Reef, and in return for an alliance with Earth, Eris Morn provided intelligence on the threat that they would all face soon. Eris had been an agent of both the Tower and the Queen before, and now she knew of a terrible foe that was approaching. Oryx, the Taken King. It was here that Mara first beheld the possible doom that would befall her, though she wouldn't realize that it would be her doom specifically until she saw it in her dreams. Eventually, Mara and her core council set about the task of creating a throne world for her. This moment and this process is recorded in the Throne lore entry of the Dreaming City lorebook. It reads as follows. Eris Morn returned to the Vestian outpost. Because she spoke well, it was agreed that aid would be traded for intelligence and a long-term alliance. In this way, the Awoken were the first to know of the Great Navigator, his philosophies, his strategies, his weaknesses. And as the Coven contemplated the possibilities laid wide before this God King's far-flung sword, it was decreed that they would build a throne world beneath an energy well as blind as the ferryman Charon. Naskia drew the schematics. Portia worked out the calculations. They made their first test with a small rift generator on the eastern shore. Satisfied that their methods were sound, they then went to a grand cathedral to dig the well. There, Lysel and Sadia augured the first borehole with the help of Riven, who had taken the shape of a needle-nosed basilisk, while Kali and Shurochi constructed the gate itself, deep below, in the hall they named the Confluence. Ilin made tincture after tincture of queen's foil until her clothes stank and her hands were stained reddish-black. Open-eyed, she walked between planes and sorted the threads of reality on a vast metaphysical loom, weaving some closer, some more distant. Mara and Riven shaped her third throne together, and the artistry of their work was a testament to the hungry joy they felt in that partnership. They named it Eleusinia, and it was in those ascendant halls that Mara finally carved a statue for Sieur. When it came time to connect the well to the unreality that lay beyond the gateway, Sadia asked, "Would it not be wiser to leave this door without a key?" Riven, now an immense antlered serpent with broad tiger paws, tightened around the perimeter of the room like a noose. "Egg," Mara corrected, absently, chewing on her thumbnail. "The key is so heavy as to be unliftable," Kali ventured, since they were speaking metaphorically. Sadia flapped her hand dismissively. Yes, I know." They all knew that the gate required a continuous multi-week charge of paracausal energies, and that almost nothing in the solar system could produce such energies at the scale required by the gateway. Almost. "It's just... Do we wish to trust the Guardians?" Ilin filled in dryly. Mara ran her hand along the sleek surface of the primary well's control mechanism, then turned and walked alone toward the fresh, foggy air that blew in from the coast. The Techeuns watched her go. "There is only the plan," Ilin said. "Remember your vows, Sadia." And so Riven and Mara set about creating one of the greatest marvels of the Ascendant Plane together. From here, and with this great marvel created, the Awoken forged a plan. This plan would eventually impact Riven, but it was forged to create a path for Oryx's destruction. The plan was thus. Mara and the Awoken fleet would prepare to engage Oryx at the Battle of Saturn. It was here that Mara intended to die, deliberately. She knew that Oryx would take her, but she also knew that by using the power of her fleet and the Harbingers, she could remove the rest of his assets from the war, his other Hive cruisers and fleets that he had brought with him in tow. With Oryx's fleet gone, and his most powerful weapon displayed for all the system to see, the Guardians could form a more coherent plan to board his ship. With the assistance of the resurgent Eris Morn, the Guardians would face Oryx, pass into the depths of his ship, and kill him once and for all. When the Taken King had died a true death, Mara Sov would be free to wander the Ascendant Plane, where she would be freed of the Taken King's influence. This would allow her to follow the threads of the Ascendant Plane back towards Eleusinia, wandering through the Sea of Screams until she found the shores of her own throne world, a throne that she would use to return into real space, through a doorway that we would open using the Blind Well. That plan was well made, but as the saying goes, plans do not survive contact with the enemy. And a key reason for that was Riven. It isn't ever confirmed explicitly, but I think that even as Riven helped to build the Dreaming City and Mara's throne world, she knew that she was building it for multiple purposes. Not simply grandeur and protection, but also for a trap and for destruction. Riven hints to this in the gauntlets of the Great Hunt from the Titan armor set of the Last Wish raid. Take a listen. I am Riven. My work on the Dreaming City is complete. I have done everything the Queen asked of me. But this is a bargain. I did so much more than that. The Queen and her ilk will not understand for some time, though I think the Queen can see the signs. what I carved into the small corners, in the wall of wishes itself. This will be a beautiful city, but not a safe city. The Dreaming City would not be protected, even with all of Mara's well-laid plans. This is what actually happened in the Taken War. When Mara Sov was defeated and taken by Oryx, his influence poured forth into the Dreaming City. Instead of being contained at Saturn, the essence of the Taken King found its way into every corner of the secret bastion of the Awoken, and from here, utter disaster struck. Oryx found the heart of the Dreaming City. He found the Queen's Walk. He found what lay there. He found Riven. I have been here 100 cycles. 1,000? I cannot recall. Before, the Queen came often to visit. We made bargains. Most of those who bargain with me do not win. We take care with those. It is how we feed. But she won. I remember when I carved this cage into the face of reality. I remember when she wished me into it. The Queen is vulnerable. I can see her far away, facing into a storm. The light around my cage fades. Darkness fills the chamber as a sheer force of will passes over it. Before me stands a king. He offers to take me away, but I know he will not let me leave either. An unfavorable position. I never made a bargain with a king. I would like to try. I tell him to take whatever he wishes, as long as he wishes. He agrees. I make an ugly sound with my mandibles. I cannot help myself. I find this scenario mirthful. Then so does he. We do it together. Loud gusts of sound from our faces for whole moments. Most of those who bargain with me do not win. And so together they laughed. Oryx because he had taken what was probably the last Ahamkara in the universe and had corrupted it. And Riven because the bargain that was enacted to do so left her with a little more power than Oryx had seen. From this moment onwards, though, Riven was taken, and she would count herself for a time amongst the forces of the Taken King. Oryx and Riven and all the forces of the Taken would lay siege to the Dreaming City, and more importantly would break and corrupt Mara's throne world. Eleusinia would be shattered and left in a state of decay forevermore. But the bargain she crafted with Oryx was something only revealed in its entirety as time went on. The rest of the Warlock armor from the Last Wish raid tells us more of Riven and her successful bargain with the Taken King, one that brought her a strange degree of freedom. I am myself, all my memories, everything I was, all the bargains I have made. That was all me, and yet I have taken a new shape. I am Riven. I have new directive. I am the king of the Taken. I watch as 100,000 thousands of fragments of my will contest with children of light. In my new shape, I hate them. He was his son. But there are those among them with whom I have made bargains. I need them. I love them. I am a king. My will breaks entire systems, and I lead a world full of darkness. But I am terrified. I know the power that these children wield. This is a war a king cannot win. I have a face today. It expels mirthful bursts of air. I still find this scenario amusing. But I am the only one. Most of those who bargain with me do not win. Let's take a moment to appreciate something here. We've never actually seen much of Oryx's perspective described from close confidants. We only know it from his own words and what we see in the Taken King expansion back in Destiny 1. It's remarkable to see something here, which is simply this: Oryx was afraid of us. And that is comforting in some strange way. This passage also, however, more crucially for Riven, reveals the truth of the bargain that she made with Oryx. She accepted the terms of Oryx's deal, but the key to her victory was in the foolish nature of Oryx's words. He said he could take her if she liked. She said that he could take whatever he wishes, as long as he wishes. In that moment, Riven became an anomaly in all the universe, a Taken who even under Oryx's control retained a degree of independence and a sense of self. She felt the rage and fear of the Taken King, but she also felt her own affection for the Guardians who'd bargained with her, and delight at the bargain that she'd struck successfully with Oryx. And then, we Guardians unfolded the next step of everyone's plans. We killed Oryx for good, and in doing so, we not only freed Mara Sov from the bonds of his power, but we also freed Riven. I am a king no longer. The king's corpse hangs in orbit above a world I will never see, not from this cage. I am Riven. I am Taken, and I am beholden to no one, nothing. I have not spoken in years. I think about what inflection I would use if I did, but no one is there. The king's voice faded long ago. No voice comes to mind. The king despaired in his final moments. Rightly so, his vengeance denied. Most of those who bargain with me do not win. I am afflicted by tedious repetition. And so from this moment Riven was beholden to nobody, and she was left at the heart of the dreaming city with Mara's Techeuns who had also been corrupted and taken. She was left in a state of tedium for a long time, until a wiser monarch approached her and made another bargain. This would be a bargain that would change the fate of the system. A strange interaction, the nature of which is revealed thanks to the warlock armor of the Last Wish raid. The Techeuns are poor company. Like me, they are taken, but I am Riven. My thoughts are my own. They do not speak to me. When they open their mouths, they emit ugly sounds, incomprehensible. I am afflicted by tedious repetition. But today I have a visitor. She reminds me of the king, yet subtler. Nothing announces her arrival. Her will does not flow through the system in open challenge against her enemies, though there are many here she would call enemy. And her will would not flow, it would crash. I did not notice her. That means the light did not notice her. She knows that though I am taken, I am beholden to no one. So I ask her if she wishes to take up those strings. She does, and I take a new shape. My cage loses its purpose. I can tell this is not a part of her grand design. This is an introduction. She is at play. Through our new bond, I glimpse her intention, and I hope she remains at play. Most of those who bargain with me do not win. She releases vibrant, unrestrained bursts of air from her face. I do not. It was here that Riven of 1,000 Voices met Savathun, the Witch Queen, heir to the Osmium dynasty. This chance meeting was merely the introduction of Savathun's influence on the system, but her entrance would be no less grand for that fact. That moment of grand introduction would take time to reveal itself, though, and in the meantime, other pieces needed to be moved into position on the chessboard. It is here that our story turns to Uldren Sov. Uldren had survived the Battle of Saturn, but was in a state of hopelessness. Now that Mara was dead, and without her guidance for him and his people, he felt utterly untethered from the world around him. Mara had long manipulated the Awoken Prince so that he would be subservient, faithful to her cause and zealous in his efforts to uphold it. Unfortunately for them both, this left him pliable and easily manipulated. It is here that Riven worked her way into the picture, assisting in maneuvering the pieces into place. She would first appear to Uldren as the faintest whisper of a voice. Uldren would follow the voice, and would be greeted by the creature that he would save, the creature that would one day call him Father. Just a whisper, just a brush of reassurance, just a quaver. Uldren, my rescuer. He follows the voice. The violence of his thruster burns bruises his body, down from the tumbling corvette to the harnessed asteroid below, where shattered servitors and the wreckage of Shanks mark the site of a losing battle. Guardians ambushing a fallen party. His suit's chemoceptors detect a trace of ether. He follows it in. And there it is, a fallen Archon crumpled in the dust. Ether hisses through entry and exit wounds, cauterized by brutal solar flames, the mark of the golden gun. Uldren hisses in disgust as he traces Guardian's footprints in the dust. They must have sprinted off together in a rush, no doubt to farm some other site where skiffs were coming down with mining parties. He triages the Archon's wounds. Mortal. The victim is shaking now, trembling under Uldren's hands. He wants so badly to do something, anything to ease the poor soldier's passing, to have the power some say his sister had, to save just by proximity. Does he wish it? Does he wish to save this poor thing? He does. He does. His eyes burn with sympathetic tears as he works to bind the Archon's wound. His hands are quick and gentle, and he weeps with the strength of his hatred for the Guardians that did this. As tears strain the Archon's wound, the ether roiling through Uldren's fingers slowly grows heavier, darker, more noxious. He does not notice. Finally, he leans back to smear his knuckles across his eyes, sore. They're always so sore. Under the unmarked helmet, 4 dead eyes open in wonder. The Archon croaks a word, a broken leftover of a dying hallucination, calling out to whoever he wanted to see welcoming him into the afterlife. Dad? Uldren in this moment had become a tool that Riven had unleashed upon the system, and in that moment he had unleashed a blight all of his own. The Scorn. Remember that there is a key moment here. Uldren wished for the Eliksni before him to live, and in doing so, he created the Fanatic. Riven answered him, and with his wish, she would turn the ether that was dripping from the wounds of this fallen Archon into dark ether. And thus, the Scorn were born, and the Fanatic in particular would gain his ability to continually return from death. He would be undead. He would no longer die. Her wish magic, Riven's power, is part of what sustains the Scorn's ability to return from death. In the Season of the Witch, we actually got commentary on this, thanks to Imaru. Take a listen.
Savathun took these guys apart and put them back together. She knows exactly how they work. They're a little Ahamkara trick. Wishing someone back alive doesn't mean they'll come back the same. I heard Eris knows all about wishing. Too bad you put Riven in the ground. It sounds like you could use a wish or two. Savathun kept these undead dolts in here under lock and key. Studied them for a while. She wanted to see if there were anything like Nokris' necromancy. They weren't. They got a special kind of resurrection just for them. No ghosts, no throne worlds, just dark ether and the witness. And lucky for us, they just keep coming.
As it turns out, there's only one other being who is able to create Scorn according to Immaru. That being just so happens to be the Witness.
Funny. The Witness can bring back any dead Elixni and turn them into Scorn. Sounds just like our Guardians, doesn't it? It's good to have an army of useful undead dummies. Looks like the Vanguard knows that too. So, snap, snap, hop to it. You've got a lot more Scorn to kill.
The first of the Scorn that was revived by the wish magic of Riven and the desire of Uldren Sov was known as Fikrul, but he would go on to be known as the Fanatic, the first of the Scorn Barons, and with his assistance and the aid of the other Scorn that soon would be raised, Uldren went on to destroy the fallen House of Kings, who had long stayed hidden to survive the greater threats of the system at large. They would then go on to terrorize the Reef, killing hundreds if not thousands, all at the urging of the voice in Uldren's head, the voice that was growing steadily louder. It even eventually started to manifest as a vision at the edge of Uldren's perception, a vision that distinctly looked like Mara. Eventually, a tipping point was met. Uldren's desperation and his belief that Mara was still out there led him to accuse Ilan, one of the most senior Techeuns, of hiding Mara Sov away somewhere. This encounter ultimately led to Uldren surrendering himself to the awoken forces of the Reef under Petra Venj. A certain fateful Exo was with them that day as he was incarcerated in the Prison of Elders, Cayde 6. He was there just as Uldren was put into his containment unit, and he would be there as Uldren and his barons escaped. This would be where Riven's machinations and the machinations of Savathun would ultimately cross our paths. This is where the plot of Forsaken begins. One day we arrived in the Reef alongside Cayde. A prison break was reported at the Prison of Elders, and Cayde had invited our Guardian along to help contain what was sure to be one of the maddest outbreaks in the whole system. As Cayde might have put it, this was going to be a great gunfight. Together with Cayde and Petra, we were able to contain a sizable portion of the rioting prisoners. As we descended to the lower levels, however, Cayde was ambushed, and the Scorn sharpshooter Pirha, one of the Barons, would destroy his ghost, Sundance. Cayde's death would spark a fire within the tower, the likes of which have never been seen before. Guardians abandoned their posts en masse and headed to the tangled shore to hunt down Uldren Sov. But as all of this was happening, Uldren himself was beginning to experience more vivid hallucinations of Mara at the edge of his vision. He followed these hallucinations to Mara's old throne room in the Vestian outpost. He burned it down. He followed them to Earth, to the remnants of the Traveler's Shard, where he took a shard of his own, a shard of the Traveler's Light. Using that, he opened the way into the Dreaming City, and it was here that his visions of Mara Sov were revealed to be a lie. In this moment, Uldren was consumed by what came through the gateway from the Dreaming City, the voice of Riven, a taken chimera under the control of the Wish Dragon herself. As he was eventually found in the aftermath of the battle, he would not beg forgiveness. Instead, he defiantly proclaimed that everything he had done had been done for Mara Sov. Petra Venj and our Guardian would kill him. It isn't clear who fired the killing shot, but it is known that Uldren died that day. The first step in Riven's plans were now complete. It was Petra who helped prepare for what came next. She called us back to the watchtower on the Tangled Shore where we had killed Uldren, and she asked us to step through the gateway to join her. We would commune with her at the Oracle Engine, our first venture into the Dreaming City. She had invited us through the gateway to watch her back, and here Petra would attempt to communicate with Mara. This would be the next stage of Riven's plans as they would unfold, thanks to the vengeful actions of the Awoken. This was the first time at which we truly got some of our explicit spoken hints about Riven. Take a listen.
What happened to Uldren?
There is an immense creature at the heart of this place. But I cannot say more. The Queen must be the first to know. I'm sorry, my friends.
In making contact with Mara Sov, Petra had opened the way for what came next. Mara gave the order for vengeance. The Guardians would flood into the Dreaming City and prepare to face what lay at its heart. This is where we arrived at the events of the Last Wish raid, where 6 immortal Godslayers faced up against the greatest secret of the Awoken. It is here that we found Riven, and here that we finished the Great Hunt, once and for all.
Petra Venge.
Mara, you're alive. I'm so... I mean, my queen.
And I see you brought the Guardian.
Yes. Forgive me, Your Grace. But I have news. Your brother, Prince Uldren, is...
Dead. I know.
Of course. His soul was corrupted by the Taken. He suffered from delusions, which I now believe were caused by...
Riven.
Yes, milady. She too has been taken, as have Kali, Shuro, and Sadia.
So many loved ones turned against us.
Tell me what to do, my lady. Please.
Assemble a team, Petra. Send them into the heart of the city. Kill that creature and extract its heart. I offer the riches of our realm as bounty. Open the gates and let the Guardians in. I must go. The battle rages on. If you have news, send it. I will answer as I am able. Stay strong, my Wrath. I believe in you.
You were right.
Yes. Mara Sov, Queen of the Awoken, lives. I'm going to get my ship. Meet me when you can.
In hindsight, perhaps it should have been obvious that all this was a trap. As we progressed through the labyrinthine structures of amethyst and stone, it was clear that Riven was leading us to her deliberately. Riven even goaded us on as we made our way to the heart of the Dreaming City. She had pushed us further and further, and eventually she even invited us to find and kill her.
For generations, the Dreaming City housed one of the Awoken's most closely guarded secrets. She is known as Riven. Riven of 1,000 Voices, the last known Ahamkara. She has been taken, and her death is your calling.
Undeterred, we made our way to the heart of the Queen's Walk and faced the last known Ahamkara. The battle was one of the most fearsome that we Guardians have ever faced, but eventually, triumph was ours to claim. We struck down the Wish Dragon and ripped her corrupted heart from the putrid remains of her carcass. And as we struck her heart down, we heard her last words. They should have been a warning, but it was already too late.
You're so close, friend. Find me, kill me, my heart is yours.
Racing against time, we took Riven's heart to the Techians, who worked to contain it below the Queen's Walk. But even as they did so, Riven's terrible purpose was truly revealed.
I've waited so long to fulfill one last wish.
fetch the heart. Hurry!
One wish granted deserves another. Our power, the power of 6 immortal god-slayers, would give Riven the capacity to unleash Savathun's wish. The unleashing of the curse of the Dreaming City. This would spell doom for the Awoken people, who would forever be caught in a repeating cycle of death, life, and defeat. But we too would be haunted by this moment. The age-old bond that Riven spoke of would stay with us. She would stay with us. And as we explored deeper into the ascendant spaces of the Dreaming City, from time to time, you can still hear the words of the Siren of Riven, persisting even past her death, as is the nature of the Wish Dragons.
I am glad you did not heed her words. We will finish this.
Riven of 1,000 voices, architect of this city. Return to us for the sake of plans to come. It is done. We will meet you on the other side.
I thought they'd never leave. You and I are not done. We're inseparable now. Through your actions, we forged an age-old bond between my kind and yours. One wish granted deserves another. And I cannot wait to show you what she asked for. Oh, murderer mine.
Riven would make one last note to us, as much a taunt as an acknowledgement of her own victory. It would be her way of saying that she had died, and yet still, she had won. I am Riven, and I am pleased. The Techian believe that with my heart in tow, I will remain imprisoned. But my bargain with them is fulfilled, and they will pay. This city will pay. But what about you, Brother Slayer, Spawn Killer, Child of Light? What will you do now that we are bonded for all your lives? I gave you everything you wanted in that moment, everything you needed. You complete your raid, and you are rewarded for your efforts. Did you exhibit a violent display in the aftermath? I wonder. Some of you do. Everyone wants more than they have. A key element of all bargains. You are afflicted by tedious repetition. It is my turn to benefit. Most of those who bargain with me do not win. O murderer mine. And so with this, Riven's story comes to a close, at least for now. She is seemingly survived by her clutch, both those that are taken and those that are not. I'm going to look into doing a 4th and maybe final episode of this series, covering those who have made deals with Ahamkara in greater detail. Of particular note, we have the once god of vengeance herself, Eris Morn. But that's all detail for another time, and we may have more parts to this series as we learn new things ahead of the release of the Season of the Wish. In the meantime though, that is all from me. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you want more Destiny content and more content on Wish Dragons, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. Is there a part of the lore of Wish Dragons that I've missed? If there is, let me know. I want to make this series as complete as I can possibly make it, and the next episode may be the last, but it's also going to be one of many videos coming out over the Season of the Wish. So if you have anything you want me to talk about, let me know down below in the comments. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Barodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.